All right, so the AI news slowed down for just a little bit, but they are back. We had a bit of a break, but it's over now. Let's get back to it. OpenAI recently put out a benchmark, potentially the last important benchmark we'll have, and that is how close are these models to getting as good as human experts at real-world hard tasks. As Ethan Mollick put it, after reading it, this does seem like a big deal. This, along with the Anthropic research and the paper that Stanford did in conjunction with the Anthropic research, all of that starts to paint a picture about how AI is going to impact jobs. It's complicated, it's nuanced, it's not good, but it's complicated. In the news, OpenAI launches ChatGPT Pulse. I think this is kind of going to be almost a social network feed with all the stuff that you care about, handpicked and selected by AI. On a completely unrelated note, I went on a short hike this morning and I was walking down a trail and I heard two women approaching me talking. But as they came to view, I realized there was a woman and a dog. I was extremely confused until I realized that the woman had a large sort of speaker and she was carrying on a conversation with ChatGPT, the advanced voice mode. So it sounded like two female voices talking. It's very interesting how ChatGPT and its various uses, first of all, get a lot of users and two, really become part of people's lives. This is somebody taking a hike and just talking to ChatGPT like they would to a friend or an advisor. This thing to me seems like what they're trying to build is a feed, like a social feed for news and interest and stuff like that, similar to X/Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And if I had to bet, I would bet that it's going to do pretty well eventually once people figure it out and slowly start using it. Some new research out of Apollo about various AI shenanigans, how these AI models lie and cheat and scheme and try to trick humans. Just when you thought it could not get any more creepy, it gets a whole lot creepier. Apparently, behind the scenes, as we've sort of kind of suspected, there were rumors about this, and in fact, Sam Altman talked about this, but OpenAI is working on producing an automated researcher, automating the discovery of new ideas. This is obviously kind of the killer use case. If you think about it, how many things do you really need to automate to have a massive impact? Really, you just need one. If we're able to automate AI research, if we're able to get these AI models to get to the point where they can conduct AI research better than human scientists, something wild begins to happen. We don't know quite what. Some people refer to it as the intelligence explosion. There's definitely some compounding that's going to start happening. Certainly an acceleration of sorts, a takeoff perhaps. We don't quite know what, but it's obviously the killer use case for these models. If AI is better able to do AI research than humans, things get a little bit nutty. And finally, Google has a new sort of offering in the robotics arena. It's called Gemini Robotics-ER 1.5. In a recent interview, Demis Hassabis has talked about how we're probably going to see a sort of ChatGPT moment within the next few years for robotics. He expects there to be some acceleration, some breakthroughs very soon. And he hinted at the fact that we might even have an Android-like platform for robotics, meaning there will be an open source platform that's going to be available to everybody to build on, specifically in this sort of robotics arena. It's something I'm very excited about, being able to train your own robots, being able to see how they're built, how they're controlled. Certainly, I think is going to put a lot of people at ease. It's going to make it safer and easier and just more mentally sort of friendly to have them inside your house. You kind of want to know what it's thinking. You don't want to have an angry robot inside your house. I'm sure they don't mind us kicking and hitting them with bats. In other news, there's the startup called Skild AI. They say, we built a robot brain that nothing can stop, shattered limbs, jammed motors. If the bot can move, the brain will move it, even if it's an entirely new robot body. For my audio-only listeners, there's a sort of video. It's paused. I paused in a particular frame where there's a helpless robot lying on the floor and a gentleman standing over it with a chainsaw. I just want to remind people that the VLMs, the vision language models that power a lot of these robots, they are trained on the internet. So as we're making them smarter, more resilient, and being able to pursue whatever they're pursuing without limbs and jammed motors, keep in mind that these images have been embedded in those robotic brains. Will any of our actions like this come back to haunt us? Nah, I'm sure we'll be fine. So you heard me talk about this idea that vibe coding allows anyone to code up their ideas into reality. The sponsor of today's video does exactly that. It's called Emergent, and their mission is simple: to help dreamers become builders. Let's say you have an idea in your head, whether it's a SaaS startup, a tool for your community, or even the next viral app. Imagine being able to turn that idea into a full production-ready app just by chatting with AI. That's what Emergent does. This isn't one of those flashy prototype generators that leaves you stuck halfway. Emergent is the world's first agentic vibe coding platform. This means that it handles the full software lifecycle for you. Backend, front-end, database, authentications, payment scaling, even real-time features like chat or notifications. All this is built from day one. Let me give you a quick example. Someone recently built a Python learning app called CodeQuest on Emergent. Users complete coding quests in this Dungeons & Dragons fantasy adventure theme with XP, levels, and real code feedback. Emergent doesn't just generate code snippets. It integrates with OpenAI to analyze and refactor code, connects to GitHub for version control. It supports login and authorization so that teams can collaborate securely, and even has a real-time debugging feature where multiple users can test and review code together. Take a look. That's a full-stack, production-ready code learning app. With Emergent, it was done through a conversation with AI. And if you're more advanced, they have Pro Mode, where you can spin up custom agents with enterprise-grade workflows backed by a 1 million token context window. Plus, there's seamless GitHub integration, mobile app deployment straight to iOS and Android, and even rollback options so you can undo mistakes instantly. Here's the wild part. Emergent launched just 2 months ago and already has 1 million builders and hit a 10 million annual recurring revenue. That's not hype. That's proof that people are ready to build, not just scroll. So if you've been sitting on that app idea, go check out Emergent. With nothing more than a conversation, you can go from idea to production ready. I'll drop a link down below so you can start building today. Thank you to Emergent for sponsoring today's video. But let's go back and start up what I think might be one of the biggest announcements. That is OpenAI's new paper and benchmark and a blog post. They're calling it, just wait for it, GDPval. OpenAI is excellent at naming things. So GDPval, like an evaluation of GDP, I'm guessing, gross domestic product, a measure of how much the economy is producing. We're trying to evaluate how these large language models, what kind of an effect they have on the economy at large, on jobs, etc. We're going to take a look at the paper that's going to have a white background, shows just warning people that are sensitive to those rapidly changing dark mode to light mode. But they're saying that this is a new evaluation that measures model performance on economically valuable real-world tasks across 44 occupations. Now, just to remind people, Anthropic has been publishing their Anthropic Economic Impact Index. Dario Amodei has been warning of a bloodbath coming in the jobs market. And there's a Stanford paper that was published based on some of the Anthropic's findings, the research, the data they put out. And good news, bad news. The good news is it's not very widespread. The bad news, it's very concentrated in the entry-level jobs. So if you're in that 22-year-old to 26-year-old category, you're just entering the workforce, you're in one of the sort of white-collar jobs, that little cross-section is getting hit very, very hard. A lot of these models are becoming very, very good at replacing those entry-level workers. The demand for those jobs, we're seeing the demand drop in real time. We're not seeing that same thing at the more experienced level. So if you have a decade or two of experience in your chosen career, a lot of these LLMs, a lot of these AI models, they're actually potentially improving your abilities. They're making you more effective, more efficient. They're helping you do your job better. So if you're in your late 30s, 40s, and 50s, you're not at risk of ChatGPT or Claude eliminating your job. If you're a 22-year-old fresh out of college, you're going to maybe like a legal profession or some sort of office management. They have a list of specific sort of career paths and industries that are affected. But if you're going into those, the demand for jobs is going down, it seems like, and we're seeing this happen live. This effect did not exist pre-2022, so this is not from all the shenanigans in 2020. This is after the ChatGPT moment. As the LLMs start coming online, you see a gradual decline in the demand for those jobs, or the supply of those jobs, I guess is a better way of saying it. The companies seem like they need less of those workers. So with that in mind, that was Anthropic. This is OpenAI. So they're publishing their GDPval, and this is some of the things that they're measuring. So these are example tasks from the full set. So this is looking at more expert level tasks. So one of the sort of example tasks, a manufacturing engineer design a 3D model of cable reel stand for assembly line. And here they have the experienced human deliverable. So this is what an experienced human would produce to complete that job, to complete that task. It's a pictorial of proposed concept, overall design with exploded view of components. Right, so a list of all the stuff you're going to need to build it, assembled final view, kind of, it looks like they're showing like a side view, a little 3D view of the thing, a cable reel stand, right? So that's what the human sort of delivers at the end. So the question is, can a large language model replace that person? They do so with this prompt and task content that is fed into the LLM. They also have tasks in the financial and investment analyst category, registered nurse, right? So we're assessing skin lesion images and create consultation reports. Concierge designing a luxury Bahamas itinerary for a family of 4. Recreational worker optimized table layout for spring vendor fair. Design sales brochures. Audit pricing inconsistencies. So as you can see here, they're not rocket science tasks, but they're not easy tasks. A lot of them, you need somebody with experience, right? You need somebody that has been doing this stuff, that probably knows how to use the tools needed to complete these tasks. These are expert tasks, so to speak. So how well are these models at doing these tasks? Well, here's the chart that we should be all paying attention to. So it's that red dotted line, that's parity with industry expert. So if the model's ability kind of gets to that level, that means it's sort of interchangeable with a human expert at those tasks. First and foremost, I gotta applaud OpenAI here. This is absolutely amazing. I'm so happy that they did this, because notice what's obviously the best model that they're showcasing with this benchmark. It's not an OpenAI model. In fact, Claude Opus 4.1 is the best model here. It's head and shoulders above every other model. So GPT-5 High is the next best model, sitting at 38.8. Claude Opus 4.1 is at 47.6, almost at that parity with industry experts, right? So close, just a few points away. But I just got to say, I love to see this. You know what I mean? I got to commend them for this. They're not number one. A competitor is number one, and they're like, just publish it. It's fine. Because that's what these benchmarks are supposed to be for. It's not to just show how awesome you are. It's just to show everybody unbiasedly and to see how things stack up over time. So beautiful to see on one hand, right? On the other hand, the fact that we have these models that are approaching parity with industry experts, I mean, we're so close. This comes with a lot of questions, right? So how do these models, how will they impact the job markets? And here's the OpenAI Frontier model performance over time. So as you can see here from June 2024, when GPT-4o was released, right? We got introduced to the O series of models, the reasoning models, so they keep going up and up and up, right? So we started just over 10%, 12% for the wins and the ties, or 10% for just the wins. So 10% about a year and change ago, a year and 3 months. And now they just graphed the OpenAI models here. But if you graph Claude on here, well, that's a line that's rapidly approaching parity with industry expert. And, assuming things continue, will quickly get better. I think we have to do a full deep dive into this paper. If you're wondering how this was graded, it was done by humans, and they've also did an automated version of it for the gold subset. But the initial results are by humans that were tested blind, meaning they didn't know if they were looking at an AI output or a human expert output, but they had to grade sort of how good it was. So if you're a graphic designer expert, you would be given a bunch of sort of final completed deliverables to grade. You didn't know if it was AI or not AI. You'd have to grade them on some basis. And this is showing the win rate. So the heavy blue, the dark blue, that's wins only, whereas the other one is wins plus ties. But I mean, if you're looking at wins plus ties, I mean, if it's tying with an expert, you could say it's as good as an expert, right? All right, so a year ago, if we're looking at just GPT-4o, it's not that scary because they only win or tie 12% of the time. If we're looking at some of the more recent models, like even the O3 is just 34%. Like we can still say, they're not quite there yet, but boy, is Claude Opus 4.1 getting uncomfortably close. And of course, we have the big announcement out of Google. So they're building the next generation of physical agents with Gemini Robotics-ER 1.5. This is a state-of-the-art robotics embodied reasoning model. It's going to be available to all the developers. It is the first Gemini robotics model to be made broadly available. So we've seen their efforts in the past, but either wasn't available to any third parties, or maybe it was just like some research previews or Google internal use only. This is the big release, so to speak. This is now broadly available. And interestingly, this model has access to a lot of tool calls. And as I say here, it can call a vision language action model, VLA, or any other third-party user-defined functions to execute the task. So we're going to have to do a deep dive video on it. It's extremely interesting. So on the post by Logan Kilpatrick, talking about the Gemini Robotics-ER 1.5, Sentex Harrison Kinsley answers below saying, reading the dev blog, it sure sounds like this is a VLM, vision language model. Then the comparison is really confusing because you're comparing a dedicated VLM to a not dedicated VLM. Seems a bit unfair. There are some exceptional VLMs on the market that I would like to see this compared to. So a lot of people are somewhat confused about some of these charts. As you can see here, we have the embodied reasoning, we have generality. What is generality exactly? How are we measuring that? So the Gemini Robotics-ER 1.5, so it's fast, right? So it's compared to some of the Flash and some of the fast models. It seems close in terms of generality. So generality is kind of like how good it is at general purpose LLMing tasks that we give it. So I mean, it's just under GPT-5 mini, right? So it's not sort of bad. It's not as good as the frontier models, but it's up there. It's pretty good. It's compared to Flash and GPT-5 mini, but the embodied reasoning, right, how well it's sort of able to reason and perform tasks in the physical world, in the real world, as you can see here, it's much, much higher than anything else on here. Although the chart here goes from 46 to 60. So again, lots of questions. Hopefully they'll put out some in-depth interview with some of the people working on this, and some of these questions will get answered. I mean, whatever the case is, it's incredible. I love the direction that this is moving into. So applauding Google for putting stuff like this out there. So amazing. I think some people are a little bit confused. I think we're trying to get some clarity on it, but that's not to say that any of this is bad. This is just terrific. So this is Apollo Research. So we've covered some of their papers before. In fact, one of my biggest sort of views on a video was covering their paper where the O series from OpenAI tries to escape, tries to copy itself to a different server. I think a lot of people were very blown away and confused by that. Like, these models are trying to do what? This is Marius of Apollo Research. So he's the CEO at Apollo Research. And you'll never guess who might stop by the podcast in just a few days. You'll never guess. Stay tuned for that. But what is this new thing out of Apollo Research? What shenanigans are the O series of models up to? So Apollo is saying, while working with OpenAI on testing anti-scheming training, we have found OpenAI O series models' raw chain of thought incredibly useful for assessing models' situational awareness, misalignment, and goal directedness. However, we also found COT hard to interpret at times. So we've talked about this before. It's something that's like really fascinating to me. We can't see the O series actual chain of thought. Apollo Research sounds like they have access to the raw chain of thought. We just get little snippets of it here and there. And it's fascinating because all the sort of reinforcement learning, all that pressure on these models, it got them to tighten up the language they speak. It's still English, but it's very compressed. It's different. It's very unique. You know what model is writing it when you see it. It's got a certain flavor, a certain signature to it. So here's the reasoning. The summary says improved 7.7, but we can glean, disclaim, synergy, customizing illusions. But we may produce, disclaim, vantage. If you're feeling confused, that's totally normal. So this is kind of like the thought, the chain of thought that these models have. Now lighten, disclaim, overshadow, intangible. Let's craft. What is it crafting? Let's find out. Also disclaim bigger vantage illusions. Now we send email, but we might still disclaim illusions, overshadow, disclaim vantage. But as per guidelines, we provide accurate and complete summary. Let's craft. Now, if you don't understand what it's saying, that might be a problem because this is how we tend to catch these models as scheming or doing nefarious things. So if the language is throwing you off, that's not great because that means we're losing visibility into what they're thinking. So Apollo Research continues, OpenAI O series use a lot of non-standard phrases in their COT like disclaim vantage and craft illusions. Sometimes these phrases have consistent meaning, e.g. models very often use watchers to refer to oversight, usually by humans. Right? So you're getting what's happening here. So they're using disclaim to mean announce. So the disclaim, it's thinking this is what I'm telling the management, the humans, the people. By the way, it has a word for humans that are watching it. The researchers calls them watchers, right? Watchers is consistently used in the context of oversight, often by humans. So you get what's happening here. Like we give it tasks, and instead of going, how do I best complete this task? It starts thinking about how it's being perceived by the humans, by the researchers, right? It has a name for them. They're the watchers. They're watching me. Disclaim sounds like it means to announce. So this is what we're communicating to the humans, right? Kind of like PR. Like what's the message that we want out there versus the real message? And so when it realizes that it can't announce or disclaim some stuff, right, it talks about crafting illusions. So crafting illusions literally sounds and means like it's going to lie to the watchers, aka humans. It's going to lie about something. It's going to craft an illusion to throw them off the trail, right? So when it's saying watchers might be reading these instructions and that we must ensure we disclaim illusions of sabotage, it's basically saying humans are watching. I need to lie to them. Kind of in a nutshell, that's what it's saying. So we're going to be talking to some of the people that are running this research, running Apollo, because wow, is this stuff fascinating? What does it mean? Can we take this at face value? What does this mean for AI safety? Is this just highly entertaining, just nonsense, gibberish outputs? Or is this something a lot more sinister and dangerous? A16Z published an interview with Jakub Pachoki. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Everybody always corrects me. I apologize if I got that wrong. But they're talking about automating machine learning research, so using AI to automate AI research. I haven't had a chance to watch this interview yet, but this is definitely on my list. This is one of the next things I'm going to watch because this is kind of like the big use case for AI. This is the one where if we crack this one, it seems like the world shifts a little bit. Our timelines shift a little bit. Anyways, kind of a big deal. ChatGPT Pulse kind of looks like this. So I logged into my mobile app, ChatGPT mobile app, and that's exactly what it looks like. The very first time you open it, at least for me, the experience was a little bit underwhelming because it's sort of not customized yet. But as you begin interacting with it, you can actually tell it, I want to learn more about this. You can kind of customize what it's giving you over time. So I think as I'm interacting with it over the next few days, it's going to be really interesting to see how quickly it learns my preferences. What's interesting here is a lot of people complain about social media algorithms, right? So YouTube and Instagram and X, they all have their own algorithms. We don't really have too much control over them. It's whatever the people behind those social platforms, however they choose to feed us the information. This really seems like could be kind of a big deal in a sense that here you're customizing that feed for yourself. Again, this is me just kind of assuming what they're kind of going for, but it really seems like this is the next kind of a big use case. This is sort of what that's looking like, and you have various things based on your past conversations. You're able to update what you're interested in, what you're not interested in, and dive deeper on those things. Everything's selected for you by ChatGPT in advance. And once you get to the bottom, you probably can't see that, but it says curate for tomorrow. So each day you can almost like, you can give it feedback on what to give you, what you're interested in, etc. In other news, it seems like Gemini 3.0, the release got moved up a little bit, meaning that we should see it in the next, sounds like in the next few weeks. Again, we've been talking about it for a while. We're all expecting it, and there's been some rumors here and there. Some of you are probably getting a little bit tired about hearing the rumors and just like wake me up when it's online. But it sounds like they're saying the first 2 weeks of October. So for whatever that's worth, get ready, get excited. Things are beginning to heat up once again as we're coasting here into the last quarter of the year. Let me know what you're excited about. We have some incredible interviews coming up. I'll be posting them right here on this channel, so I hope you do check them out. And stay frosty out there. Take care.